What's up, guys? So we're going to be looking at board breakers now, and I think we're in a really interesting format now. Firstly, I'll preface this by saying that almost every board breaker right now is really deck specific. Some decks, it's not even worth playing them. You won't do a very good job, whereas other decks, you can afford to play board breakers and you do well. So take this with a pinch of salt, like really apply it to your deck, and I'll probably talk about a lot of decks as I'm going through board breakers. And to start off with Dark Greed No More, I think Dark Greed No More is okay as a side deck for some decks. I think some decks like Fire King, some decks like Branded, this card is really, really good because your deck in Engine has a lot of grind and staying power, and then also a lot of times you just need to out like a weird Floodgate or something, or an Infinite Negate Appaloosa. But outside of that, I wouldn't play this card for a lot of decks. I wouldn't play it in Pure Snake Eye. I wouldn't play it in like Silent Force or something, and it's just because against Pure Snake Eye, Dark Ruler means they're getting another turn. And in fact, I'm going to put evenly here as well because it's a similar case. And if you give them another turn, if you give Fire King or Pure Snake Eye another turn, you're probably going to lose. It's very unlikely your deck can grind better. Again, the exceptions to this is if you're playing Fire King, Snake Eye yourself, or if you're playing Branded, I would say. I can't really think of another deck that is consistently beating their board, can play through the still one or two interactions they have, and also can set up follow-up. There's just not really decks to do that. So that's the problem with both of these cards. I do like evenly against back row matchups. It's always a nice card to have, like against the Labyrinths and stuff, but there's just not enough of those decks to really warrant it. So I'd say these decks are okay. These cards are okay, but unless you're playing specific decks, I wouldn't play these. I think Supole is very good in specific decks. I think Branded, you should be main decking this card. Some other decks as well, this is okay. Silent Force, I think this is okay in as well. The issue you're going to run into with Supole is just this a really hefty cost. And again, we're in a hand trap format, which means that hand economy and card economy becomes super important. You're paying 2 cards to get rid of 2 cards on the field. Most of the time, the 2 cards you get rid of on the field are not going to be worth that cost. Sometimes it is. And this is why in decks like Branded and Silent Force, sometimes it's nice, because in Branded, often, you're going to get rid of 2 cards, or you're going to only get rid of one of your opponent's cards, but then it's like, you're also allowing a card of yours to resolve. In Silent Force, they have very effective 1-card combos, and a lot of their cards are going to bounce back from the grave anyway. Most other decks can't afford to pay this cost. So while I do think this card is very, very good, if I'm actually going to move it down as well, while I do think this card is very, very good, it's very deck specific as well. Talents is and Thrust are, well, I'll put Thrust here and I'll put Talents here. I think Talents is main decking. You have to play this card. It's just too good. Going first, going second. This is the best card in the game right now. It's absolutely, well, it's the best non-engine card. Snake Eye is probably the best card in the game, but this card is absolutely ridiculous. It just does too much going second. A lot of the times with Snake Eye plays, you're going to be able to bait an Appaloosa or bait a negate, and then Talents take it, and now you basically win that matchup because you have a bunch of negates. Being able to look in the hand is also very good. They're always going to have hand traps. Being able to draw 2 does come up sometimes, even though you're not always going to be using that effect. I think Thrust is good for the same reason as well. This is very, very good going second. So I would say that while Talent should be main decked, I'd say Thrust is probably better in the side. And then there's also just a lot of good spells you can search as well. Thrust, obviously, you can sometimes search into your Branded Fusion or into a Terraforming or whatever you need to start your combos. So both of these cards are really good. I think Droplets is also doing a good job right now. The nice thing about Droplets is that there's a lot of targeted interruption. You've got the Princess, you've got the Imperms and Veilers and things like that. You've got SP. And Droplets allows you to really trade positively. So you have to be smart about how you use it. But this card functions very similar. Do I have it here? I don't have it here. Oh, I do. It functions very similar to Econ, but in a better way where your opponent can't respond and it can send spells and traps. And so I think this card performs really, really well. And then also, being able to send spells and traps is good. In Pure Snake Eye, it means you can sometimes send an original and search for a card that you want. Or you can sometimes get a card that's stuck in your spell and trap zone to the grave, so you can trigger like a Flamberge or something. So I really do like this card. It does really good right now. I think some people are even main decking it. I think main deck or side deck, this is very, very good. And Econ for the same reason. Very, very good card in the side deck mainly. Now, disadvantage obviously of Econ versus Droplet is that Econ does not hit, it can't send spells and traps, and also it does not hit like the untargetable monsters and stuff, which actually is relevant. And I think that's another reason why Droplet is so good. You're not going to struggle with matchups like Silent Force and stuff, whereas Econ doesn't do anything in those matchups. Duster's okay. Like, it's not a bad card, but I'd definitely put it down here. The problem is removal spells, power spells in general need to be like so incredibly good to even warrant putting them in going second. Again, it's like, what are you dustering? Most of the decks that you're going to be putting in Duster against aren't even in the meta right now. Like, it's like they need to be like setting 4 or something. Now it isn't too bad into like the Fire King Snake Eye variant sometimes, because you might be able to hit an island or something, but even then it's not fantastic. Like there's almost so many other cards you'd rather have than Dust Eye, I would say. So I don't think the card is terrible, but I do think it's very matchup specific, and it's usually going to be quite weak against your average matchup. I think Lava Golem is great if you can play it, but you can't play it probably. You almost certainly can't play it. And then also you have to be careful as well, because against Fire King Snake Eye, they've still got Princess, they've still got Kieran in hand they can trigger. I think Sphere Mode is really good, but you probably can't play it. So if you don't need your normal summon, I would definitely play Sphere Mode in the side, because both Snake Eye decks are going to be putting loads of monsters on the board. Branded is going to be putting loads of monsters on the board. Even Silent Force is usually ending on 3 monsters. Don't believe the cap when people are like, oh, they can play around it. They'll play around it after the first time they see it, but you only need it to work once. But I think the problem is just most decks can't afford to give up their normal summon, which is why this card doesn't see more play. Chalice, we've been seeing a few players chucking Chalice to their decks. I don't really like it personally. I think that the thing about Chalice versus Droplets is that I think that clause of not being able to interact with the card gives it so much strength that I just can't see a world where I ever really play Chalice. Like, I just don't think it does too much right now. I think Kurokara is actually kind of bad. In fact, I'd put Kurokara all the way down here. I don't think the card is good, but I think that Snake Eye can search it for free so easily that if you're playing a Dear Bellstar engine, it's worth having one in your side deck just because you're going to get the card for free. But I don't actually think the card is good. I would not actually recommend siding this over just a regular Kaiju for anyone, because if you look at the main cards that ignoring Kaiju non-affected monsters, this card doesn't deal with unaffected monsters. So when you think about the unaffected monsters in the format, it's going to be Kashira making BLS, it's going to be Raid Raptors making their big ass towers. I can't think of anything else. Now, against Kashtira, their towers can't be Kurokara because it's never going to be activating in your turn unless it's battle phase. Unless you've crashed into their monster. Outside of that, you're not going to Kurokara it. Against Raid Raptors, the scenarios that lead to them having a towers on board mean that what's going to happen is you have to commit a bunch of cards, then they're going to blow up your board and burn you, and now you can Kurokara them, and even then you can only Kurokara one monster. That's not worth playing Kurokara for. You've already lost at that point. So because of that, I think this card is bad again. I think only play it if you're playing a Dear Bellstar engine, and not even that. Only play it if you're playing specifically Snake Eye Ash, because then you can search it for free. Outside of that, I wouldn't play it. Lightning Storm, I think, is good. I think the issue you'll run into is anti-spell and things like that, but I still think the card is very good. It's a nice card in the side decks. I don't think Book of Moon does enough right now. Book of Eclipse is a little bit better because it hits loads of cards, but I still don't think it's amazing. I wouldn't replay either of them. Change of Heart has been seeing good results, and I'd say so. Change of Heart and Snatch Steal. Do I have Snatch Steal here? I don't have Snatch Steal here, but Change of Heart, Snatch Steal, I think these cards are okay. The issue you're going to run into these is that they're not good against everything, but they do really hard check Appaloosa. This is why people aren't always going into Appaloosa, which is nice. And the other thing about these cards is that you don't have to wait for your opponent to activate an effect or put a card on the board to use them. They're just useful straight away. So I do think this card is quite good. It's not amazing, but it's quite good. This is XYZ Encore. I think if you really, really, really struggle against Pearly and Raid Raptors, and also you somehow have a free matchup into Snake Eye, I don't know what deck that is for, then sure, play XYZ Encore. Outside of that, I can't see a reason to play that. That goes Herald of the Abyss as well, same thing. So the mass removal spells, I don't think they're good. I don't really understand why some people play them. I think they're all terrible. I think the problem is, against pure Snake Eye, they will have a negate, and even if they don't have a negate, you're still not doing a huge amount, because they usually, if they don't have a negate, they're ending on either they're ending on a bunch of hand traps in hand, Appaloosa and SP, or Appaloosa and IP, or they're ending on negates plus IP. If they have negates, these cards aren't that good. If they don't have negates, they're ending on a board with IP, which means that they're just going to link into something that you can't pop. And so I think that they just don't do that good job against those decks. Now, against Kashtira and stuff, these are nice, but I think that there are so many cards up here that are good against Kashtira and Flunder and stuff that I can't see why I would go all the way down here just to deal with it. Like, I'd rather play Eclipse. I was playing Eclipse before, specifically for Kashtira. I can't see a reason why I would play these cards right now. They just don't do that good. Ultimate Slayer, I think, is fantastic right now, but again, this is so specific. Not every deck can play it. But I think this is probably the best specific side card. If you can play this, this is absolutely fantastic. Right now, there's probably like 2 or 3 decks to play. I feel like maybe branded. If you can find the space, finagle the space, it's maybe branded. Even that is a bit technical. I think Silent Force can definitely play it, and yeah, like I don't know, like Stun. I think Stun can play it, and I think in those matchups, and Flunder actually as well. I think in those matchups, this card is so good just because your opponent can't respond to it. It's basically an out 2 cards a lot of the time, and one of the things that is happening a lot right now is that we're seeing your opponent often, like, they'll have layered interactions everywhere. So they'll have a bit of interaction with the field, they have a bit of interaction in the back row, and cards like this I really like because they trade so well. You're going to shuffle a card in the field that they can't interact with, so you remove that, you remove an Appaloosa or something, and then maybe you get to send an Elder and pop a card, or you get to search for a star. I mean, this card is so good. I really love Ultimate Slayer, and if I was playing Silent Force, 100% 3 of those would be in my deck. 3 in my side deck. No way I wouldn't. Denko's crap, don't play Denko. Pancratops is not that good. The problem with Pancratops is just that it won't do enough in most matchups. Against Snake Eye, it's kind of annoying if your opponent summons a Pancratops, but you don't, again, this card, a lot of the value in cards like this, and it's similar with Dark Green and Evenly, like Pancratops, a lot of its value is that it's a body that pops that you can also beat over something with it. You don't want to donate your battle phase to Snake Eye, because if you do, you'll lose. So because of that, it just ends up not performing as well. I'm actually going to move it down to bad because yeah, it's just a pop basically. Now it's just MST, and MST is not that good. Cyclone is very good. You probably should be playing it. It's just a good card in your side deck. Yes, some people are omitting this card, but usually if they're removing this from their main deck, they have another option like Fenrir or something. So I definitely think this card is great. Alpha's crap. Kaijus are not worth playing, but I would play them over Kurakara. Blizzard, I don't think is that good. Like, I wouldn't put Blizzard all the way at the bottom like this, because Blizzard does have some applications right now, like things like hitting their field spell, the Snake Eye field spell, things like hitting one of the Snake Eye cards in the spell and trap zone. I'm pretty sure you can hit them and bounce them to the hand, which is not bad, but I still wouldn't play it. Twin Twisters is not good, just play Cyclone. Like most decks, it's the problem with Super Poly, you can't afford that card economy. Now, hot take, I think Soul Release is absolutely terrible. I think this card is trash. The thing is, the problem with Soul Release is you are burning a card in your hand to not interact with the board at all. You're only interacting with the grave. Now, in the Fire King Snake Eye matchup, this can be good. It can be good. But even in that matchup, you're going to be getting rid of Grunix and Grave, so you're getting rid of a pop, and Princess. So you're getting rid of 2 pops. They still potentially have an Avatar on field. They still potentially have an Appaloosa on field. They still potentially have hand traps. They still can play afterwards. So it's really nice. You're hurting some of their follow-up, but you haven't really done much. Not only that, there's loads of Viking combos that play around that. Most Viking players now are putting the Grunix back in their hand. So you're not even really playing around Grunix. Grunix is still going to trigger. I think against Pure, it's crap. It doesn't do anything. Like, you get rid of maybe a Flamberge. If you get rid of 2 Flamberges in this against Pure, it means their hand was bad and they started with 1 Snake Eye Ash, in which case they probably have 4 hand traps, so this card is still not doing much, because what's going to happen is next turn, yeah, they haven't got Flamberge, but Oak is still OTK even if they don't see Flamberge. So I don't think this card is good. I think it's terrible. I really hate Soul Release, and I think it's a testament to us seeing less and less people play this card. It just doesn't do anything. And then lastly, Shadow Fusion. I think Shadow Fusion is okay. I think, again, the problem with this card is it's very specific. Most decks can't afford to play Shadow Fusion, and also you have to play a lot of bricks in your deck. So again, if you're playing Tier, if you're playing Branded, this card is quite good. It will do a good job. Outside of those decks, I can't think of a deck that I would really like foam at the mouth to play Soul Release in. I'm not sorry, Shadow Fusion in. But guys, that is my meta tier list. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you all in a bit. Peace.